Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Charlie Paris Concordia Automatic Blue. This watch is available from charlieparis.com for €745. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with a piece. So the Concordia Automatic Blue comes in a watch box which is protected by this outer sleeve. As the name suggests, Charlie Paris are based in Paris in France, and if you look at the front of the sleeve you can see the address of their Paris boutique. So they retail their watches via their Paris boutique and also online on their website charlieparis.com. So this is the watch box itself, finished to high standard with a nice fabric material. I like the spring-loaded action of the lid. It's fully upholstered with a white contrasting velour fabric inside, as you can see. The watch sits on a padded pillow cushion inside the centre section. Very nice presentation, so immediately one gets the impression that this is a high-quality French-made watch. With regards to other items, this is the comprehensive owner's instruction manual, clear concise diagrams, and it is also bilingual both in French and in English. Very useful read because it details every aspect of the operation of the Concordia Automatic Blue, including the movement used, which is the caliber STP 1-11 automatic. This is the guarantee card. On the reverse you can see that it is filled in with the date of purchase, which is December 2021. Now, I'm pleased to report that the Concordia Automatic Blue is covered by a 2-year international guarantee, which is very reassuring because at this price point, €745, one would usually expect a watch to only have a 12-month international guarantee. To get a 24-month warranty at this price point really is a credit to Charlie Paris. One also gets this card, which is a thank you card from Charlie Paris, thanking you for purchasing the watch. And lastly, one also gets this fabric bag, which has a drawstring, as you can see, and I'll show you what that contains. As an alternative to the stainless steel bracelet, one can purchase this piece on a fabric strap, and as you can see, this is a Cordura style strap, flawless stitching throughout, nice heavy thickness to the fabric, and it has stainless steel quick release spring bar, so one doesn't need a spring bar tool in order to remove the strap and fit the bracelet or vice versa. I like the fact around the holes are welded, so therefore it's not going to fray and split, which is often the case with NATO straps and Cordura straps. So it's a very high quality, thick, good quality fabric strap. I'll show you the other side. We've got two keepers, one's fixed, one slides, as one would expect. Flawless stitching on the top side and underside. Now it is a stiff strap, so it's going to take some breaking in, but it is going to be comfortable when it is broken in from daily wear. Mirror polishing to the buckle and tang, as you can see, finished to a good standard. Nice heavy gauge of metal to the stainless steel buckle and tang, so a good credible alternative if the bracelet isn't your own personal taste. So, with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the Charlie Paris Concordia Automatic Blue. The Concordia Automatic is available in two colour options. One can have the black dial version or a blue dial version. Of those two options, I think this is the better looking. I really like the blue tone of the dial and also the aluminium bezel insert. So, we have a 40mm case diameter. We have a 47.2mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 12.4mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The oyster-style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to the flip-lock clasp, and as you can see, the flip-lock clasp is signed to a high standard. We have the Charlie Paris emblem on the V-shaped flip block and also the Charlie Paris logo engraved below it, so very nicely finished. Brushed satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks. Now, I'm often critical of brands only having 3 micro adjustment holes in the flip-lock clasp. Credit where credit's due, Charlie Paris have made the correct decision because they have got 4 micro adjustment holes. Now, the other thing I really want to give credit to Charlie Paris for is they offer this watch with 4 different length bracelets, and that's something unusual. I've never seen brands do that. This is the extra long bracelet. It comes in a short, medium, long and extra long, and of course I have an 8-inch wrist, so I've selected the extra long. So it's good because rather than having to resize the bracelet, you can actually choose the correct bracelet length to suit your wrist, and I really think that that is innovative. I think more brands should do it, so credit to Charlie Paris for offering 4 different lengths of bracelets on the same piece. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a double dome sapphire crystal which has blue tinted AR coating on the underside. I think they've made the correct decision in using blue tinted AR coating rather than clear AR coating, because it does have a navy blue matte dial, and the blue tint of the AR coating complements the blue aluminium bezel insert and also the navy blue matte dial. As you can see, there's a nice hue to the AR coating when one tilts the piece at an oblique angle. I absolutely love the slight distortion and slight magnification effect of the double dome sapphire crystal when one tilts it at an oblique angle. It gives the watch a real vintage aesthetic, but of course using sapphire crystal is more scratch resistant than using mineral crystal or the other vintage alternatives, plexiglass, hesselite or acrylic. So it's got that vintage aesthetic, but also the modern enhancements of scratch resistant sapphire crystal. The mirror polished baton hands are finished to a high standard, and I like the use of a rectangular loom pip on the sweeping second hand. It really is very nicely executed, a very good quality handset. The dial layout is interesting because they haven't just copied the default option which so many microbands use of copying the Rolex Submariner dial layout. They have used a circular index on the dial at 12 rather than the more conventional triangle. So I like the subtle details. They didn't copy Rolex or Tudor by using snowflake hands or Mercedes hands. They've used baton hands, and they've also changed the applied indices by using a circular index at 12 rather than a triangle. I also think they've made the correct decision by citing the date complication at 6 rather than the 3 o'clock position, because it retains the symmetry of the dial. The white date wheel with black Arabic numerals is clearly legible, and they've put just the right amount of information on the dial. It's not over-branded with text or specification. And I like the contrasting red text at 6 o'clock. It adds interest to the dial. The chapter ring is very nicely executed, and I really like it. I think this is a good, functional, clearly legible dial layout. Now, with regards to the bezel, it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. Solid 316L grade stainless steel, coin edge finished, and it is very low profile. The bezel reminds me of a Tudor Black Bay 58 bezel. It's got that similar low profile coin edge finish to it, and the case shape is also very similar to the Tudor Black Bay 58, although it is a 40mm head of the piece versus the 39mm head of the Tudor Black Bay 58. I like the large chamfers machined to the top edge of the case, which mark the transition between the tops of the case and the flanks. Brass satin finish to the tops of the case, which contrasts beautifully with the mirror polished flanks. Absolutely flawless mirror polishing, very high quality finishing throughout. So let's test the bezel action. 120 click unidirectional bezel, as one would expect. Good firm resistance to it. Now, the low profile coin edge bezel is very grippy. It's easy to get good purchase on it with one's thumb and index finger. I like the loud audible clicks, and it's got a firm ratcheting mechanism. So it sounds good and it also feels good. Good solid mechanism to it. Perfect alignment. So I'll just check the lateral side play. No lateral side play whatsoever. No back play whatsoever. This is a good, tight, well executed bezel action. It feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation. So Charlie Paris deserves full credit for a very well executed, solid bezel action. If you like firm resistance bezel actions rather than light resistance, you will find this to be very enjoyable. Perfect alignment every time. So with regards to the crown, solid 316L grade stainless steel, knurled finish, and we've got a navy blue ring which adds interest to it. One detail I like about it, and it represents very good attention to detail with regards to the design of the piece, they have used a conical shape crown. If you look at the shape of the crown, it has a slight taper to it. That actually makes it very tactile and very grippy. It's easy to grip even when wearing a glove. As you can see, I'm wearing a cotton glove, but I can get good purchase on it. So the knurled finishing works very well. It's very well finished, very aesthetically pleasing, and the cap of it is recessed with a convex profile, as you can see, and engraved with an emblem. So very nice finishing, but it actually works very well because the conical shape to it means that one can get a good grip of it. So silky smooth, it's very good. It's got a nice firm resistance. Now, the firm resistance isn't due to the threading interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. It's due to the resistance of the O-rings, and I actually like that because it's very reassuring. It means that the O-rings inside the crown and the crown tube are providing a very good, effective hermetic seal to 300 meters of water resistance. So, the caliber STP-1-11 has a characteristic pop which pushes the winding stem out of the movement. In the first position, we are in the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the STP-1-11 to top it up to its maximum 44 hours. One can feel the tension gradually building up in the mainspring. It's an absolute pleasure to wind the STP-1-11. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication position. So if you look closely at 6 o'clock, you will see the quick set complication works well. The date complication has a nice positive click as each day of the month clicks over, so very satisfying to use the quick set date complication. Pulling it out to the second click position is the time setting position. The caliber STP-1-11 has hacking. If you look at the second hand, you can see it is now stopped dead. I have now hacked the movement, and it's an absolute pleasure to set the movement. Very light resistance. I would actually describe it as lighter than the ETA 2824-2 and the Solita SW200-1. So minimal resistance to the gearing, which indicates it's a very high quality movement. The STP-1-11 is very well made. So very silky smooth gearing. I like the feeling of light resistance. Absolute pleasure. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. So I'll test screwing it back down. Immediate thread pickup. This is outstanding screw down crown execution. Good interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. So as discussed, this crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 300 metres of water resistance, and I think that Charlie Paris deserve full credit for this, because they could have cut corners with regards to the specification and made this a 200 metre water resistant piece, but it has 300 metres of water resistance, which is very impressive at this price point. Now I want to show you the case back because it is a very interesting aspect of this piece. And there's something notable about the watch which I want to bring to your attention. Beautifully engraved, as you can see, the solid stainless steel caseback provides an effective hermetic seal to 300 metres of water resistance. Now if you look at the engraving, you can see it says Objectif Pole Sud. And the reason why it says that is this watch, the Concordia Automatic, was used in an expedition in Antarctica to the South Pole. A solo explorer did an expedition to the South Pole, and they wore a Concordia to test it out. So the South Pole has very strong magnetic fields, and underneath the caseback has an anti-magnetic shield. So I'm pleased to report that this watch meets the criteria of ISO 764. So I'll explain what ISO 764 is in simple terms. It's an anti-magnetic rating, so ISO 764 means the watch has to meet a resistance of 60 Gauss in terms of being anti-magnetic. So the Solo Explorer wore this in Antarctica in his expedition to the South Pole, which has very strong magnetic fields at the South Pole, and I'm pleased to report that this watch performed very well, and it proved that this has ISO 764 and it resisted up to 60 Gauss of magnetic fields. So that's why the caseback is engraved with Objectif Pole Sud, because it was used in the South Pole expedition, and below it says Expedition Antarctique, which means it was used in Antarctica, and as you can see it has a map of Antarctica. So it's a very thoroughly tested watch, and to get an anti-magnetic shield underneath the caseback at this price point is very impressive. The solid end links are a good tight fit to the case, and they also feature quick release spring bars. There are two quick releases, one either end of both spring bars, which means that one doesn't need to use a spring bar tool to remove the bracelet if one wants to fit the Cordura strap, as I showed you earlier. So that's good. I like watches with quick release spring bars rather than using conventional spring bars. It's nice to be able to remove it without a tool. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now bear in mind, this Concordia Automatic Blue is available with 4 different bracelet lengths. This is the extra long bracelet length, but you can also select the short, medium, long or extra long depending on your wrist size, and that negates the need to resize the bracelet. You can simply use the 4 micro adjustment holes in the V-shaped flip lock clasp. So I like that one can tailor fit the watch to one's wrist size. Female pivoted end links are an excellent choice, and again Charlie Paris deserve full credit for not using male end links. This means that it is a good snug fit to the wrist. If you have a smaller 6 to 7 inch wrist, you are going to find this a very snug fit. 47.2mm lug to lug measurement really is close to perfection. As you'll know from my previous reviews, I regard 48mm to be the sweet spot, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. At 47.2, it is very close to that sweet spot, that perfection of 48mm. Now, one thing I want to give due credit to Charlie Paris for, and I want to bring to your attention specifically, is this is a relatively low profile piece. It's only 12.4mm, bearing in mind it has a double dome sapphire crystal, and this is an automatic piece, it's not a quartz or a manual wound piece. Usually automatic powered pieces with a double dome sapphire crystal, I would expect them to be in excess of 13mm thick. So at 12.4 they deserve full credit, because bear in mind that this has not 200 metres of water resistance, it is a 300 metre water resistant piece. Usually with 300 metre water resistant pieces, they need to have a thicker sapphire crystal and a thicker case back in order to withstand 300 metres of pressure. So to get a 300 metre water resistant piece with an anti-magnetic shield underneath the case back at only 12.4mm is very impressive. So it really is very good specification, very good dimensions. The 20mm bracelet lug width perfectly balances the 40mm head of the piece, so they've got the proportions of this done to perfection. I also like the taper on the oyster style bracelet from 20mm at the lugs down to the V-shaped flip block clasp. Nice taper and beautiful lustre to the 316L grade stainless steel. So the feel good factor is excellent, the comfort level is excellent. The only thing to note is on the extra long bracelet, it is a heavy piece, it's 168 grams, but if you use the short or the medium length piece, for example if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, that will reduce the heft of the piece down to circa 150 grams. And as you'll know from my previous reviews, I consider circa 150 grams to be the sweet spot in terms of having wrist presence and heft to feel quality on wrist, but also to be comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. So with all the links in the extra long bracelet, it is 168 grams, so it's heavy. But it is a very well balanced piece. It doesn't feel top heavy, it feels incredibly well balanced. The other thing to note is you can also wear it on the Concordia strap if the bracelet isn't your own personal taste and you want to reduce the heft. So it's surprisingly well balanced. It doesn't feel like a top heavy piece. I like the curved profile to the undercut of the case. It really does feel and look very similar to a Tudor Black Bay 58 in terms of its proportions, the taper on the lugs, and also the overall fit and balance. So a very comfortable piece. Right, so let's test the loom and we'll see how it performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to its absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This is top grade C3 Superluminova. Perfect colour match with regards to the green tone on the baton hands and also the applied indices. And I like the symmetry of the dial. One can clearly orientate the dial. It's easy to differentiate 12, 9, 6 and 3. It is acceptable to have an absent index at 6 o'clock due to the date complication. I like the use of a date complication on the piece. I think it's very functional. And it also retains the symmetry rather than citing the date complication at 3. As you can see, the C3 Superluminova is glowing very brightly and it will continue to glow for a good length of time. I like the use of a rectangular loom pip on the sweeping second hand. It gives a good indication of the position of the second hand. You can see it sweeping around the dial. So it's a very well executed dial layout, and it's also a very good application of C3 Superluminova. We have clearly got 5 to 6 layers here because it's not fading fast. This is a very strong performance. So it's clear that Charlie Paris are using top grade C3 Superluminova, and I'm delighted that they haven't cut any corners with regards to the loom used. As you can see, it's still continuing to perform very well. I've described the brightness as very close to a Tudor Black Bay in terms of its performance, and I think it's very impressive bearing in mind the price point of the piece. It's €745. This isn't a mid-tier piece costing in excess of €2,000, for example, but we still have that level of quality Superluminova. Right, so let's discuss the movement used, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. It uses the calibre STP-1-11, so this is the first time I've reviewed a piece on my channel with the calibre STP-1-11, so I'll explain to you about it. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse Swiss-made movement. The STP-1-11 is effectively a clone of the ETA 2824-2. The architecture of the STP-1-11 is very similar to the ETA 2824-2. The only notable difference is it has an extra joule added to give it 26 joules versus the 25 joules of the ETA 2824-2. But in terms of build quality, reliability, quality control, I regard it to be equal to the ETA 2824-2. It's very similar to the Sellita SW200-1, which you'll all be familiar with, because it also has the same number of joules, 26 joules. So it's a good choice, and really I regard it to be equal in quality to the SW200-1 and the ETA 2824-2 in terms of accuracy and build quality. So it has 28,800 vibrations per hour as its beat rate, a frequency of 4 Hz, hand winding and hacking, which use for complications, and it has a 44-hour power reserve. Now that is actually superior to the ETA 2824-2 and the SW200-1. Both of those movements have a stated power reserve as 38 hours. In practice, I have found the power reserve of those movements when fully wound to be circa 40 hours, but the STP-1-11 does have a slightly higher power reserve at 44 hours, which is very good. The stated accuracy is plus or minus 15 seconds per day, which is perfectly acceptable. I'm pleased to report that Charlie Paris are regulating their movements very well. This one is regulated to plus 5 seconds per day, which is excellent, bearing in mind that this is a mid-tier price point piece at €745. So accurate, reliable, well proven, workhorse Swiss movements. The STP-1-11 really doesn't have any negatives. I think it is the correct choice for this piece. So I really like it. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price points. So on the bracelet, it is €745. Yes, I consider it to be excellent quality, and yes, I consider it to be excellent value at €745. Are there any negatives to the piece? Well, there are certain enhancements I would like to see Charlie Paris make. It uses push pins in the bracelet. At this price point, I would like to see Charlie Paris upgrade the push pins in the bracelet to screw pins, because I think that would further enhance the piece. And I do like the use of the 4 micro adjustment holes. I'm often critical of brands only using 3, but however I would like to see them upgrade the clasp to a heavier gauge of metal, and that would again further enhance the piece. And lastly, there is only one other thing I would like to see them improve. I would like to see them add a loom pip to the aluminium bezel insert, because again I think that would enhance the piece. But really they are the only considerations, they're the only negatives, and they are subjective. My own personal taste is for screw pins. I like a heavy gauge of metal to the clasp, and I also like watches to have a loom pip. But for some collectors this is subjective opinion, and of course they will not regard these things to be negatives, and they will like the watch as it is. Other than that, it is an excellent piece. It is excellent quality and excellent value. So I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money, and I'm going to highly recommend it to you for your consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Charlie Paris Concordia Automatic Blue. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.